Have I told you about S? It's coming out on every console ever in May. Check it out, link in the description. Hello and welcome. You suck. I'm sorry. Okay, how about something lighter? You're not that great. Sorry for sounding a bit smug. I promise I mean well. Don't worry, I'm not that great either, okay? So let's just say it together. I suck at pretty much everything. You're not even saying it out loud. Listen, I don't actually care about helping you here. It's just that this is something that I've learned from being a high-profile personality online over the couple years, and that is, it's better to just acknowledge that you're not that great. And I don't mean it in a self-destructive kind of way. I'm just talking about ego. It's something that I used to struggle with, or at least I think it's a constant struggle when you are this handsome. That was a funny joke, right? For someone that's gone through somewhat of an ego trip, I think it's so easy to spot when other people are going through it. And it's such an ugly behavior that I can't even sympathize with the person going through it. And a lot of times I criticize through videos when these sort of things happen. We don't need to get into any names, okay? When I first received my first bit of hate or criticism, I'm gonna use the term hate very loosely in this video, because that's how I think people do in general, and that's kind of a problem in itself. When I received my first bit of hate, it was about 6-7 years ago, and I had just been making videos, and it was just me and my audience, and no one had really sort of interfered with that, and we just had our own special group and bubble, and it was a beautiful time, honestly, looking back. But then I did get criticized for being squeaky humor, sexual jokes for kids, and inappropriate humor in general, and very childish, and I just was not equipped to handle it. I never faced any sort of criticism, especially in the way that as ruthless as the internet can be as well. You might be criticized by one person, but then a whole army of the internet sort of joins in. My sort of first reaction to it was,
there's nothing wrong with me, okay? There's something wrong with you. And why, by the way, why are you even criticizing me? If you don't like my content, then don't watch it.
And that's a classic ego response, I think, because you're sort of saying that, oh, I'm above criticism. Just because you don't like me, it's your problem and not mine. And it makes sense, and that's sort of the sentiment that's been carried out, I think, for a long time, that you should just brush off hate comments and never pay attention to them. In retrospect and looking back, I'm really glad I listened to hate comments. I'm really glad I was able to pick out at least what I thought I could improve on. And I think if I didn't do that, I probably wouldn't even keep making videos at this point, because I would either, number one, let all the hate actually build up and get to me, or number two, I would have just stayed the same. I would have done the same stupid, squeaky content as I've always done, and no one would care to watch that for that long, at least. So I feel pretty sure that that wouldn't be the case. And I also think that it made me want to improve. I think opening up in a way, it made me improve on things that I never thought I would improve on. It made me learn things that I never thought I would learn, thanks to hate comments. So I sort of wanted to make this video to open up that idea into people's mind that maybe it's not all that bad. I'm not ignoring the fact that some are just straight up garbage comments that you should 100% ignore. I'm just saying that if you are honest with yourself and you are honest with your ideas, then you have at least the ability to tell it apart. Because if you're honest with yourself, as well as you can at least, then if someone calls you out on something or some type of behavior, then you can look at yourself more critically instead of immediately going into defense mode, or there's nothing wrong with me mode, there's something wrong with you. And for an example, I don't mean to keep dragging on the Logan Paul thing, but I think it's an interesting one, because his first response, just that, it was very different from his video that he made. And I think you can tell, just like I did a few years ago, he went through the same mindset of wanting to defend yourself versus maybe I'm not that great. Well, we saw how long that lasted. But still, if you really think about it, hate comments can be free, unbiased criticism that you receive anonymously, which you won't get from even your closest friends, most likely at least. And I think a lot of times when you see celebrities or online personalities surrounded by big groups, that's when they usually have a big ego problem because there's no one there to call them out on their behavior. I think a lot of times hate comments can be a really useful tool. It just comes in a very, very ugly shape. I'm not ignoring that. Obviously, it's important to have confidence and self-esteem. I'm not saying you shouldn't have that, but I think deciphering or listening to hate comments have honestly given me that, because I can honestly and confidently tell them apart. I can tell apart if someone's being an idiot or if there's actually something valuable in there. And this is sort of the point I'm trying to make here, is that a lot of times you might get a really bad comment that might make you feel really, really uncomfortable, and it might contain X, Y, and Z, but then maybe, let's say Z is really valuable, constructive criticism. I don't like being criticized. I can just brush this off completely because X and Y makes this a hate comment. Does this make any sense at all? You're sort of using their own weapon against them anyway. Maybe I'm trying to do a more positive spin on this than there is, but this is just from my experience. I'm sure not everyone is like this. Taking criticism is very uncomfortable, but I think it's important to at least open yourself up just for a second of that feeling uncomfortable, and sort of just play with that thought instead of just completely throwing it away, because I think that can lead to really dangerous behavior, which I'll get into in a second. And don't get me wrong, it's hard. It's really hard to take hate comments, and I think I sort of categorize them in 4 different shapes. Number 1 is the straight up dumb hate comments that are just trying to make you feel bad, and there's nothing else in there. Just ignore those. Number 2 is the ones that are ignorant and hateful. Maybe they base some sort of judgment on you and they don't know something that you know. Just ignore that as well. There's nothing valuable there, obviously, as well. Number 3, I noticed some comments disguise themselves as constructive criticism, but really it's just a vicious attempt to seem like they're not trying to cause you harm, but they are in fact trying to do that. Just to go ahead and ignore those as well. And number 4, which is hate comments trying to drag you down but actually contain valuable criticism. That's the one that I think it's least worth to consider. And even then you have to be very critical of it. Listen, I never said it was easy. Because obviously you're not supposed to just conform to what anyone else wants you to be. You're not just supposed to listen, oh, I did that wrong, maybe I should do this. You sort of have to figure that out yourself. I think if I just listen to all the criticism I got by the media, and to be fair, a lot of it has been valid criticism, and that's why I realized when I have to confess to it, I suppose. If I listened to all of it, I would literally just be another celebrity with no opinion and thoughts on my own that went outside the mainstream media narrative. At least it wouldn't have been honest. It wouldn't have been honest to how I think and who I am. So the key point here is really honesty. And I'm not saying drive yourself mad by listening to hate comments all the time. That's not it at all. But this is just something you sort of have to learn if you want to be an internet personality, or I don't know, in general. It might be worth it. I don't know. It's really great trying to prove a point by saying I don't know. By opening up yourself to the idea that maybe I'm not that great, you sort of open up yourself to improve. And if you don't do that, and if you completely just throw it away, then like I said, you run into probably a lot of issues along the line. You're not just cheating how you look at yourself, but you also have to start cheating how the whole world is different, because you have to defend your ego. For example, this is why Amy Schumer thinks that the reason because her TV show did poorly is because of far-right wing politics. And not because maybe it wasn't that great. Imagine having to tell yourself that instead of just questioning yourself. All right, maybe my movie wasn't that great, and maybe there's some valid criticism here that I can improve for my next movie. Oh, look at that. Then her next movie is doing super bad as well. Think about it this way. You cannot become great if you already know that you are. And if you don't want to do any of this, that's fine. Most likely you probably will never have to even. But I think it's a valuable lesson for a lot of YouTube personalities or internet celebrities in general. I see a lot of my even favorite creators really struggled with this, and like I said, I think since I went through it, I can tell when other people are, and it's just a shame. And I'm not saying I'm completely without an ego either. I think everyone needs some sort of level of it at least, but I think that the fact that we have adopted this idea that all hate comments are just inherently bad is actually really harmful, and I think that's what creates really insane people. Deep down, we all know that we're not that great, whether we want to admit that or not. And unless you accept that, you will absolutely lower your chance of ever becoming something more than what you already are. P.S. You suck. Thank you for listening. I don't know if this was helpful at all, but it's just some thoughts I wanted to share. Goodbye.
If you're an influencer or creator with an ego problem, contact Pewdiepie for a personal therapy consultation today by calling 555